Do you think nationwide injunctions are being abused?
Certainly, Senator. I think that is
They're being abused by both sides, aren't they?
Yes, Senator.
Both Republicans and Democrats. Yeah. There are no clean hands here. I think politicians have helped judges, and many judges are politicians, to just make it up. And many of them are like Professor Shaw here. If they like the president, they're against nationwide injunctions. If they don't like the president, they're for him. Professor, let me ask you this while I have you. On April 22nd, 2024, you said there are some members of the Supreme Court that are evil. Which justices were you talking about?
I'll take it your word, Senator. I don't recall using that word, but
all right. Here's what you said. Who were you talking about,
sir? I'm very skeptical. If it's a transcription, it was probably a transcription error. I do not think I said.
No, you said it. Why don't you own up to it? Which you call some of the members of the Supreme Court evil. Now, which ones do you think are evil?
I would have to refresh my recollection. I've been very critical of some members of the Supreme Court.
You made that statement, aren't you?
I'm telling you, Senator, it doesn't sound like something that I would say.
You know what I'm embarrassed at? That you're teaching our kids.
I don't refer to Supreme Court justices as evil in
the
classroom,
on
sir.
On your podcast, April 22nd, 2024.
Okay, well,
big as Dallas.
Ladies and gentlemen, patriots of this great nation, welcome back to Right View Nation, the home of truth, liberty, and the constitutional backbone this country desperately needs right now. What we witnessed today wasn't just another Senate hearing, it was a full-blown reckoning. Senator John Kennedy, one of the few lions left in Congress with a spine made of American steel, just took a flamethrower to the double standards, the hypocrisy, and the intellectual rot that's spreading like a cancer through our legal institutions. And let me tell you, it was glorious. Let's break it down. Kennedy kicked things off with a straightforward question. A question any decent American with common sense would find easy to answer. Would you ever advise someone to defy a federal court order? You'd expect a unanimous, no, never, right? Because that's the foundation of a lawful society. But no, one so-called professor had to hedge, had to squirm. Well, maybe in extreme circumstances, he said. Are you kidding me? That's the problem right there. These academics, these ivory tower elites, they don't believe in law and order unless they like the people in power. They're willing to pick and choose what laws apply and when, based on their political mood swings. Then came the real meat of the matter, nationwide injunctions. You know, when one activist judge somewhere in California or D.C. gets to block an entire presidential policy for the whole country. One robe-wearing liberal with a political agenda grinding democracy to a halt. Senator Kennedy asked the panel whether these injunctions are being abused, and surprise, surprise, they all danced around the truth. But Kennedy nailed it. Both parties have abused them. Republicans have done it. Democrats have perfected it. But here's the thing, at least we admit it. What we won't accept is the double standard. Kennedy grilled this professor for flip-flopping. When Trump was in office, universal injunctions were the left's favorite tool. But when they're guys in the White House, suddenly it's judicial overreach. And then came the bombshell. Kennedy exposed this professor's own words, calling some Supreme Court justices evil. Yes, folks, you heard that right. Evil. Let that sink in. A law professor, an officer of the court, an educator responsible for molding the next generation of American lawyers and judges, calls our Supreme Court justices evil.
Would any of you advise a client to defy a federal court order?
No.
None of you would? How about you, Professor?
I mean, under most circumstances, we follow the government and private parties follow court orders. I suppose it's not, I would not rule out ever the possibility that in a sufficiently egregious order, there should be some consideration of whether there's a way.
So in some cases,
I think it's a qualified answer, yes.
In some cases you would.
In an extremely narrow band of cases, I think it would be considered, yes.
Okay. Do any of you think that nationwide or universal injunctions are not being abused?
I'm not sure what if I may, Senator, I'm not sure what the time horizon of the question is. I don't think that there could be good faith disagreements about the correctness of some of them, but I have not seen in the last 4 months
Professor, you're
abuse.
smart,
No.
and I've read your stuff, and I've read your writings, and I don't want to get bogged down with this, but I have little respect for your opinion because I've read your stuff. When someone is in the White House that you agree with, and someone gets a universal injunction against him, you don't like universal injunctions. You called them judges acting like they're politicians in robes and judges looking like crass political actors. But now that President Trump's in the White House, who you dislike, you think that universal injunctions taste like pumpkin pie. So I have to discount what you say because I think you act on your political beliefs. And I worry that that's what you're teaching your kids. So I'll leave you out of that. Do you think nationwide injunctions are being abused?
Certainly, Senator. I think that is
They're being abused by both sides, aren't they?
Yes, Senator.
Both Republicans and Democrats are forum shopping, aren't they?
Certainly.
Professor, do you disagree with that?
I think both sides are abusing them. I agree.
Okay. Both sides.
Yeah.
There are no clean hands here. Now, your suggestion is that when a federal judge issues a nationwide injunction, there should be an automatic stay and an expedited right of appeal. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Do you disagree with that?
I haven't given enough thought to have a position on it, Senator.
I suspect, Professor, your answer will be it depends on who's president.
No, Senator.
Let me ask you about this. What if we had a rule? I was reading an article the other day. I'm not suggesting it. I just want your opinions. That said, if a president, any president, issues an executive order, let's say, that clearly violates settled Supreme Court precedent, that a federal judge can't issue a nationwide injunction. For example, if a federal a president issued an order that said no one in America has right to counsel any longer, including but not limited to, in a felony case, having the government pay for your lawyer if you can't afford it. That clearly violates settled Gideon v. Wainwright. In that case, a judge has no authority or does have authority to issue a nationwide injunction. But in a case where the law is unclear, a judge should refrain from that. Now, obviously, we'd have to trust our judges, but we're supposed to be able to trust them anyway. What do you think about that?
I don't agree with that, Senator, because I think universal injunctions transgress the limitations under Article 3, even if the underlying merits are clear.
I happen to agree with you. I don't think there's any basis under Article 3, under Supreme Court precedent, under the English common law for nationwide injunctions. I think politicians have helped judges, and many judges are politicians, to just make it up. And many of them are like Professor Shaw here. If they like the president, they're against nationwide injunctions. If they don't like the president, they're for him. Professor, let me ask you this while I have you. On April 22nd, 2024, you said there are some members of the Supreme Court that are evil. Which justices were you talking about?
I'll take it your word, Senator. I don't recall using that word, but.
All right, here's what you said. You were talking about the majority opinion in Muldrow v. City of St. Louis. You said, quote, Justice Kagan, will she be able to control the opinion's future distortion by her evil colleagues? Probably not, end quote. Who are you talking about?
Sir, I'm very skeptical. If it's a transcription, it was probably a transcription error. I do not think I said.
No, you said it. Why don't you own up to it? Which you call some of the members of the Supreme Court evil. Now, which ones do you think are evil?
I would have to refresh my recollection. I've been very critical
You're
of some
embarrassed
members of the
that
Supreme
you made
Court.
that statement, aren't you?
I'm
You're an officer
Senator, it
of the
doesn't sound
court.
like something that
You know
I
what
would
I'm
say.
embarrassed at? That you're teaching our kids.
I don't refer to Supreme Court justices as evil in
Did,
the
right here,
in the classroom,
on
sir.
your podcast, April 22nd, 2024.
Okay, well,
Big as Dallas. And you're an officer of the court, and you're here advising us to be respectful to federal judges, and you say they're evil members of the United States Supreme Court? Gag me with a spoon. You're part of what's the problem in all of this.
Thank you, Senator Kennedy. Senator Durbin.
So I'm going to give the panel members an opportunity to.
No wonder this country is seeing rising contempt for our institutions. They're being taught by radicals who hate the very structure that holds our republic together. And when Kennedy called him out, he couldn't even own it. I don't recall saying that, he mumbled. It must have been a transcription error. Oh, please. It's in black and white. He said it. He meant it. And now he's too much of a coward to take responsibility. You want to know what real evil is? Real evil is corrupting our institutions with political activism disguised as scholarship. Real evil is poisoning the minds of students and citizens to hate America's foundations. Real evil is elevating politics over principle, identity over individual liberty, and power over the Constitution. Kennedy was right to call it out. He didn't hold back, and why should he? He said, "Gag me with a spoon." And frankly, that's the nicest thing he could have said. Because what we're witnessing is the slow erosion of integrity within the judiciary and academia, two institutions that used to be untouchable because of their supposed impartiality and honor. But not anymore. They've been hijacked by radicals, and it's time for Americans, real Americans, to wake up and take our country back. It's not enough to shake our heads at this insanity. We have to speak out. We have to challenge it. We have to demand accountability. From our judges, from our professors, from the entire corrupt academic judicial complex. And that starts right here, right now with all of us. Because at Right View Nation, we're not afraid to say what everyone else is thinking. We don't bend the knee to the mob. We don't grovel before the woke cartel. We stand for the Constitution, the rule of law, and the moral compass that made this country great in the first place. If you're tired of the double standards, if you're fed up with activist judges and Marxist professors poisoning our youth, if you believe that truth still matters, then join the movement. Subscribe to Right View Nation. Hit that notification bell. Share this video with your friends and family. And let's keep the flame of liberty burning, no matter how dark the left tries to make it. This is Right View Nation. Unapologetic, unfiltered, unbreakable. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America.